this group. This is the purpose of this group is to be a grassroots kind of group, and to open up also for additional members, and to have different such meetups that we've had over the last 5 months or so, with different interesting speakers every few weeks. Of course, we've been bringing diverse views and information to our friends here in Ethiopia, and those also in the Ethiopian diaspora who are part of the group. And I will say that this is kind of it's not an official embassy activity. This is kind of a community, grassroots in some ways. And the embassy is here to help kind of push it along. But we bring in different speakers with different views. And the purpose is to give motivation and also information to supporters of Israel, Ethiopian supporters of Israel, so that they can continue to fight the good fight around the world and in their communities and online. So we bring different speakers. Not all of, a lot of it, things that speakers say, it's not necessarily the official position of the State of Israel, but we are opening it up so that it's important to hear these voices. And especially this evening's speaker, let me introduce him. So we are very honored to have with us this evening Mr. Lars Enarson. He's a Swedish-born author, Bible teacher, and international prayer leader who has been active since the early 1970s. Operating primarily out of Israel these days, Enarson produces media and has written several major books centered on Middle Eastern prophetic insights, eschatology, and the foundational role of Israel in the Christian faith. In his book, The Truth About Palestine, Enarson reminds readers of the often neglected foundational facts and historical background of the Arab-Israeli conflict. And this is he's written a number of other books, but specifically this topic, the truth about quote unquote Palestine, is what Lars Enarson will be speaking about this evening. So Lars, I will give you the floor. After you present, we usually open up for a few minutes of questions and answers. And so please, thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor for me to be with you. Thank you, Tomer, for this introduction. And as you said, I will be speaking here for a few minutes first about one of my latest books that is called The Truth About Palestine. I don't know if you can see it in the picture there. Because there is such a battle right now that is raging around the world concerning truth. And I would say that the conflict in the Middle East actually can boil down to primarily a battle for the truth. And when it comes to the subject of Palestine, most people around the world, they don't know the background to what that name Palestine actually comes from. And so that's what I want to say some things about. In my book, I actually list 10 quotes by different Arab leaders, not Jewish leaders, only Arab leaders, what they themselves have said concerning what Palestine is and where it comes from. So allow me to give you these quotes from my book. The first quote here is a statement from a Congress of Muslim and Christian Arab organizations in what was then called Palestine, and it was held in 1919, so it's over 100 years ago. They were gathered to discuss the future of the area that was at that time beginning to get the name, the Mandate of Palestine. Palestine has never in history been a sovereign nation in this area, or a sovereign state, I should say. But it is a name for the area that is today called Israel, that was revived after the fall of the Ottoman Empire that had ruled this area for 400 years, from 1517 until the end of the First World War in 1917. Then the Ottoman Empire fell apart and was carved up into different areas. And one of them was given the name, the Mandate for Palestine. But so it's shortly after this defeat of the Ottomans in the First World War that these Arab leaders were gathered to discuss the future, what would come after the Ottoman Empire had ceased to exist. So this is the statement that they themselves gave after this conference or Congress. Quote, "We consider Palestine as part of Arab Syria, as it has never been separated from it at any time. We are connected with it by national, religious, linguistic, moral, economic, and geographical bonds." So, in other words, ever since the Muslim conquest of this area in the 7th century, shortly after Muhammad, they conquered this area, and it became known as under the name Syria, and what was then at this time beginning to be called Palestine was considered southern Syria, Arab Syria. So that's the first statement here that is made by or Arab leaders. The second one is from the Arab leader Aini Bey Abdul Hadi. He gave a testimony before the British Peel Commission in 1937. So now we're talking about 20 years later, because as you know, the Balfour Declaration was made also after the First World War, where the British Empire that had taken over the area from the Ottoman Empire, ruled by Turkey from Istanbul, they were given the task to facilitate the establishment of a Jewish national home in what was then called Palestine. But here in 1937, there had been quite a lot of opposition from the Arabs against the establishment of a Jewish state. So the British, they called together a commission to see what could be done about this area. And this Arab leader, he testified and said the following: "There is no such country as Palestine. Palestine is a term that the Zionists invented. There is no Palestine in the Bible." That's from the Christian perspective. "Our country was for centuries part of Syria. Palestine is alien to us." This is a Arab leader saying this in 1937. Palestine, the word Palestine is alien to us. It is the Zionists who introduced this name. Isn't that interesting? It's something that was brought in by the British because of the Jewish aspiration for a national home. And they said, this Arab leader said, Palestine has nothing to do with us as Arabs. The third quote here is from a very respected Arab scholar around the time of the Second World War. His name was Philip Hittis. I believe he is a Jordanian, or was a Jordanian. And he testified after World War II before an Anglo-American committee and said the following: there has been no such thing as Palestine in history. Absolutely not. So remember, this is not Jews who are saying this. This is Arab leaders themselves saying there has absolutely been nothing called Palestine in history. The fourth quote, and this is from this Palestinian spokesman and Saudi Arabian ambassador to the UN. He said his name was Ahmad Shukeri, and he told the UN Security Council in 1956, quote, "It is common knowledge that Palestine is nothing but southern Syria." Okay, so we are already now in the 1950s. Still no recognition of anything like Palestine among the Arabs. And then we have the fifth quote, which is taken from, now we are coming into the 1960s here, when the Russian, or the Soviet Union, I should say, decided to, in order to get an influence in this area of the Middle East, they established a so-called liberation movement called PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization. Just so you know, this is, in other words, a Soviet communist idea to create a national identity around the name Palestine. See, before, Israel was born in 1948, the modern state of Israel was born in 1948. Before 1948, it was mainly Jews who used the name Palestine. That's why, for instance, the most famous maybe newspaper today in Israel is called Jerusalem Post. Before 1948, it was called Palestine Post. But after Israel became a nation in 1948, the Jews dropped the name Palestine. But you could see, for instance, in tourist brochures from before 1948, Jewish people asking others to come and visit Palestine, because that was the Jewish people who identified with that name. Isn't that interesting? And for instance, what is today called the Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra, it was before 1948 called Palestine Philharmonic Orchestra. It's interesting because when the state of Israel was reborn in 1948, until that very day when the nation was reborn, nobody knew actually what the name of the state was going to be. Maybe there was a suggestion it was going to be called the state of Judah, the Judean state or whatever. But it was decided in the very the final days leading up to the independence, no, the state is going to be called the State of Israel. So that was something good. That's why they changed the name from Palestine Philharmonic Orchestra to Israel Philharmonic Orchestra. Palestine Post became Jerusalem Post, and so forth. Okay, now we're in the 1950s or 1960s, actually, when the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, with the help of the Kremlin, the Soviet Union, the communist dictatorship in Russia, they established this organization in order to take away the land from the Jewish people and make it into a Soviet vassal state or whatever, part of the communist bloc. So this is what it says in the original PLO charter, article number 1. It says, Palestine is an indivisible part of the Arab homeland. And the Palestinian people, this is the first time it's beginning to name a people called Palestinians who are not Jews. You see, and the Palestinian people are an integral part of the Arab nation. In 1947, November 29, there was this vote in the UN to divide the area of Palestine into 2 different states. I'm sure most of you are aware of this. But notice, it's very important to notice what was decided in that vote in 1947. It was decided to divide the area into 2 states, one Jewish state and one Arab state. Not, it was completely foreign that it would be a vote between a Jewish state and a Palestinian state. That would not have made sense, because there are 2 main peoples in this area, Jews and Arabs, and the word Palestine was associated mainly with Jews. So that's why the vote never mentioned Palestine in 1947. It was after 1948 and the state of Israel was born. Then there became this revival of an Arab so-called Palestinian identity. And the purpose for that invented national identity is solely to take away the Jewish people's right to their ancient homeland. We must never forget that. The purpose of it was, for instance, when the PLO was established in 1964, I believe, I don't have the exact name here, but I think, Tomer, you could confirm that. I think PLO was established in 1964, I think. All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So at that time, the area that is called in the media the West Bank and the area of Gaza was part of the kingdom of Jordan, respectively the nation of Egypt. It was, in other words, under full Arab control when the Palestine Liberation Movement was founded. And why was it founded? In order to create a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza? No. They were very specific in the charter, saying, we have no claims on the area of the West Bank and Gaza. We only have an aspiration to have a Palestinian state in what was then called Israel before 1967. When Israel was very, very tiny, they had a very small area. So in other words, the agenda from the beginning was to wipe out the nation of Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, I should say. That's very important. So here, the 6th quote that I want to mention is one of the leaders within the PLO. His name was Suher Hussein, and he was the head of the PLO's military headquarters. And he said the following in an interview with the Dutch magazine Trove in 1977. So now is when the so-called West Bank is under Israeli control, including Gaza as well. So this is what he said. This is very, very revealing, this quote. Quote, the Palestinian people does not exist. The creation of a Palestinian state is only a means for continuing our struggle against the state of Israel for our Arab unity. And listen closely now. Only for political and tactical reasons do we speak today about the existence of a Palestinian people. Since Arab national interests demand that we posit the existence of a distinct Palestinian people to oppose Zionism. For tactical reasons, and this is so important, listen, for tactical reasons, the Kingdom of Jordan, which is a sovereign state with defined borders, it cannot raise any claims to Haifa and Jaffa, while as a Palestinian, a new national identity that has been created, I can undoubtedly claim and demand Haifa, Jaffa, Beersheba, and Jerusalem, because there must not be a Jewish state. It's so clear, and we must have this as a foundation in order to understand the entire conflict here in the Middle East. Quote number 7. This is at the Arab League meeting in Amman in November 1987, when Jordan's King Hussein said, quote, the appearance of the Palestinian national personality comes as an answer to Israel's claim that Palestine is Jewish. So you see how these two identities, they cannot be together. Now you can talk about there could be a reason for having an Arab state in the area and a Jewish state, but to invent a new national identity called Palestinians, that's fake. So now we are in 1994. This is the Israeli Arab Knesset member Azmi Bishara, who gave a speech in 1994, as I said, in which he stated, quote, I think there is an Arab nation. I don't think that there is a Palestinian nation. I think that's a colonialist invention. When were there any Palestinians? Until the 19th century, Palestine was the south of Greater Syria, just like several of the other Arab leaders have said. The Palestine is a new phenomenon. It's not, but for most people around the world, they think the Palestinians are the ancient, original people from ancient times living in this area that has ruled this area for forever. And now comes this colonial Jewish experiment called Israel in order to, take away the original people's rights and create a new settler state, whatever. That's not the truth. In the Balfour Declaration, which laid the foundation for the international recognition of the Jewish people's right to a homeland, it says, that was in 1922, I believe, in San Remo in Italy. It was decided unanimously by the world powers at that time, which still is actually valid in international law, that the Jewish people, we recognize, this is the wording, we recognize the Jewish people's right to their ancient homeland, their historical right to their ancient homeland. That was recognized by the worldwide community in those days in 1922. But you see how something new has been introduced in order to get the sympathy from the world to do away with the Jewish people's rights to their ancient homeland. Now we come to March 23, 2012. This is just 14 years ago. This is a quote by Fatih Hamad, Hamas Minister of Interior and Minister of National Security, who said the following on Egyptian television station Al Hekma in 2012. Quote, when we call for your help, it is with the aim of continuing the jihad. Praise Allah. All of us have Arab roots, and every Palestinian in the Gaza Strip and throughout Palestine is able to prove his Arab roots, whether from Saudi Arabia, Yemen, or anywhere else. We have blood ties. He's saying this on Egyptian television. Personally, half of my family is from Egypt. Where is your mercy? More than 30 clans in the Gaza Strip are called Al-Masri, meaning Egyptian. Brothers, half of the Palestinians are Egyptians and the other half are Saudis. That's Hamas leader saying this on television. You have to tell me when I need to stop here, Tomer. I have just a few minutes left in this.
You can go ahead now. Whenever you feel, whenever you're ready, then it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Now we come, of course, to the final quote here. That's the 10th quote. It is from Yasser Arafat himself. He who eventually became the leader of the Palestine Liberation Movement to establish a Palestinian state. You have to remember, Yasser Arafat, who led this liberation movement, he was born in Egypt. He's not even from the area where he wants to create the state. He's an Egyptian. Throughout his authorized biography by Alan Hart called Arafat, Terrorist or Peacemaker, Yasser Arafat asserts at least a dozen times, quote, the Palestinian people have no national identity. I, Yasser Arafat, man of destiny, will give them that identity through struggle with Israel. Now, that should say it all. Palestinians, they do not exist as a separate ethnic nation. They have no national identity. But me, Yasser Arafat, he said, I am man of destiny who will create this national identity through struggle with Israel. And so this is what they have managed to dupe the world into thinking, that there is a separate Palestinian people that has existed here in the land from the beginning, and they have the right to their land. And that's why they scream from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. Okay, so I think, well, I want to also say that it was, I mentioned in my book that one presidential candidate running for presidency in the United States in 2012, I believe it was, his name was Newt Gingrich. He said the following when he was running for the office in the White House, quote, remember, there was no Palestine as a state. It was part of the Ottoman Empire, and that was not an Arab empire. It was a Turkish empire. It was Muslim, yes, but not Arab. It was part of the Ottoman Empire until the early 20th century. I think that we have an invented Palestinian people who are in fact Arabs and who were historically part of the Arab community. And they had a chance to go many places, and for a variety of political reasons, we have sustained this war against Israel now since the 1940s, and it is tragic. And I quote from my book here: Gingrich's clear statements resulted in an immediate reaction of furious condemnation from across the Arab world. But he refused to retract his statement. In a later debate, he clarified, is what I said factually true? Yes. Somebody ought to have the courage to tell the truth. It's fundamentally time for somebody to have the guts to stand up and say, enough lying about the Middle East. And in another TV interview, he explained that the word Palestinian had not become a common term until after 1977. That's how long it took for that word to become part of the political discourse. He continued, this is a propaganda war in which our side refuses to engage, and we refuse to tell the truth when the other side lies. I think that's about it. I want to give you the opportunity to ask questions, because I realize this might be maybe even shocking news for some of you, or maybe I'm talking to the choir here where you already knew all of this. I don't know, but I think that it's so important to have a historical understanding of this conflict. Maybe I should say also, before I end my introduction here, if you go to the Bible, we can see in the Gospel of Matthew how the angel sent to Joseph what he calls this land. I'm reading from Matthew chapter 2, and let's see here, from verse 19. This is when Joseph and Mary, the parents of Jesus, had fled to Egypt. And it says, but when Herod died, who had killed all the infants in Bethlehem, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Palestine? No, go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. So there you see the New Testament that calls this land the land of Israel. Even though many Bibles, I think, also in the English-speaking world, I'm a native of Sweden, and that was certainly true about us. They used to have maps in the end of the Bible talking about Palestine in the New Testament times and so forth. That name did not exist in New Testament times of this era. The land is called Israel, just as it is today. We are coming back to biblical times. Thank you for the opportunity to give this information.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lars. This was very interesting, and you brought really the perfect examples of everything that you're talking about, which I think gives us the factual basis for it. I wanted to just have a couple of comments and the question, and then I will open it up to the rest of the group. So first of all, I think it's important to keep in mind that in Ethiopia specifically, I think it's one of the few countries where somehow naturally most people they do understand Israel in a way, because Ethiopian identity is tied in a very deep way to the land of Israel, the people of Israel, and the history of Christianity, and before that, even the biblical history of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. So when we talk to Ethiopians as diplomats, as Israeli diplomats, we actually, no one ever doubts that the people of Israel are, coming from the land of Israel. So this is a very interesting and unique, I think, situation. But there are movements that are growing also in this country, both by some from the Muslim community and some from other more people who are influenced maybe by more modern ideologies, and they do maybe have more of this kind of opinions that we see in the West and in other parts of the world that are gaining in trend. So, but this is very important. And so I thought something fascinating about what you said about how the use of the word Palestine in the 20th century until the mid 20th century was mainly by the Jews and the Zionists, actually the Zionist Jews mainly. Even as you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned specifically, but there were organizations for Free Palestine in the 40s, and they meant Free Palestine from the British and make it a Jewish state. There were posters that would say, "Come visit Palestine," but it meant visit the land of Israel. They just officially, the British name was at the time the Mandate of Palestine. Uh, and so this is also something very interesting. And then I wanted to go more to a question. Okay, from you.
I lost your sound.
Sorry. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to the question is from your research and your exposure to different people and experiences and views over the years. Why do you think this movement has been so successful over the past, let's say, 80 years? If, as you have so clearly shown, it's based on falsehood. Why do you think it has been so successful in gaining traction internationally?
Well, first, I have to recognize that this is a communist idea from the beginning. And communism has this philosophy that the underdog is always right. It doesn't matter what what somebody who is in a downtrodden or whatever situation is doing, they are always right. That's a mentality that is so strong around the world, and it took a lot of convincing for the Soviets to convince Yasser Arafat to play that role. Because as an Arab, he was very proud to be, a strong nation or whatever. But they said, no, 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 you cannot come like that. We must instead portray you as a suffering people that is being mistreated, that has lost their rights, and that's how you can get worldwide sympathy. And that has worked very, very effectively. It's like uh, the Jewish people were given the land of Israel after the Holocaust because there was an opinion in the world that the Jews needed a safe haven, they needed a land. But that role that the Jewish people had as a suffering nation, it disappeared after the victory in 1967, when Israel was so successful in the Six-Day War against the Arab nations around. And that's when everything changed. So now the Palestinians, they became the little David fighting against Goliath. And that's how they were beginning to get the support of the world international community. So I listened, for instance, to the testimony of a communist in Greece who was very, very much brought up with this idea that we need to help the poor Palestinian people that have been robbed of their land. So he was very, pro-Palestinian, so to speak. But the way he became convinced that that is not the truth, it was the first time when somebody told him, "Do you know how small the nation of Israel is?" And he began to look at a map and he saw, wow, it's a tiny nation that can hardly be seen on the map of the Middle East, where all of the surrounding nations want to destroy them. Now he began to rethink his entire approach to this, because he now saw a little nation fighting for survival in a sea of hostility around them. So in general, people, they take the side of those who are, how should I say, they are, I'm looking for the right word, when you understand what I mean, those who are suffering from other powerful forces trying to destroy them. And that's the image that the KGB convinced Yasser Arafat to play that role of a mistreated people that were the underdog. And so they took over the entire, I mean, before 1967, most people saw that Israel was the David fighting against this huge Goliath, trying to kill them. But everything changed after 1967.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That was very interesting and helpful. So now anyone from the group is welcome to do the raise hand sign, and then we will call upon you.
Great. Marcos.
First of all, Lars, it's an honor to have you address us, and I find this information very, very fruitful and really essential, because it lays the groundwork for understanding the conflict in the Middle East, that it is a battle over truth. And the thing is, if we don't know understand the topic of Palestine, the etymology of where it started, how it started, then we could say we love Israel, but we don't have the tools to battle it. We don't understand where the other side is coming from. And I see Palestine right now. I see it more. It exists, but it exists as an ideology, but not as a land nor a people, even though it was a land before it. So that ideology is a mix of Nazism, jihadism, and communism, kind of combined into one. But all these forces are really anti-God. The very dark forces meet together, and those who are trapped in it, they're used as pawns. Another thing I'd like to say is this: some of the arguments that pro-Palis use is like, okay, Palestine is nothing new, because it exists. The name existed before the Bar Kokhba revolt of the renaming of the land by Hadrian into Syria, Palestina. That Herodotus used it as Palestine, as well as Aristotle. If I don't have the in-depth information on that, but I understand that even the Greeks, during the Greek rule, the Greeks were pretty hostile towards the Jewish people. And did that have some kind of influence on naming the land Palestine back then? So I just want to hear from you regarding that.
Yes, because the word comes from the biblical root for the Philistines. And they were the main enemies of the people of Israel in ancient times. Those were the ones that they had to fight against the Palestinians all the time. So the name for the Philistines is very interesting because, I don't know how deep I can go into this, but in Genesis chapter 10, in the Charter of the 70 Nations, Palestine is mentioned there, or the Philistines are mentioned there, but not as, if you include them, it becomes 71. So they are not a nation in that sense. The name Philistine comes from a Hebrew root that means a violent intruder. And that's it's amazing that the so-called Palestinian people today have chosen a name with a Hebrew root. It doesn't come from Arabic even. Its origins is from Hebrew, and a word that has its meaning of a violent intruder. I think that's so. It has been a name that has been associated with struggle against Israel from ancient times. That was revived by the Greeks and then later on by the Romans, Hadrian, when he wanted to remove all trace of the Jewish people from the land, he gave it the name Palestine. And it's tragic because the way that name then continued throughout history was mainly with the help of the church that continued with the use of that name. Hadrian did not only rename the area to Palestine, he also renamed Jerusalem Aelia Capitolina, with a Roman name, Latin name for Jerusalem. Now, that did not continue in Christian tradition. So that fell into, it was never used throughout history. It continued to be used as named Jerusalem. But the other term, Palestine, stuck in Christian thought as a name, which is very, very sad. And I'm sure that is the reason why the British then named the area with that name, because it was already known in Christian tradition as a name for the area.
Thank you.
Hello. Unmute yourself.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Tomer, for the opportunity. And thank you, sir. Really, I'm very much pleased to have you with us today. I have learned a great deal from this historical insight, and thank you so very much. Toda Rabbalah. Now, my question is, I think it might be simple, but it's an important one to my understanding. Now, in your explanation, I have learned that area, the so-called Palestinian area, had another name called Arab Syrian, right? Please correct me when I'm going wrong. So now, the name Palestinian is a politically coined name, if I'm correct again. Mm-hmm. Now, I would be happy to hear your insight about the impression of the people in the area called Palestine when their old name, their indigenous name, was changed to a politically coined name called Palestine. Mm-hmm. So the name called Palestine is coined by a political group like Yasser, or the leader of a political group called Yassin Arafat. Yeah. Now, my question is, I would like to to know the impression of the rest of the population, the bigger picture. When they lost their precious name called Arab.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Now, as I said in my introduction, it was primarily Yasser Arafat who became the father of that new national identity called Palestinian. And just like he said, it was because of a struggle against Israel. So it has always been something that is viewed in the context of battle against the Jewish state, against the Jewish people and the state of Israel. So, but it has spread. Now, I can say that I've been living here now for almost 30 years in Israel. And during this time, I've seen a tendency, but I think it is about to reverse again, where Arabs in the state of Israel began to eventually also identify themselves as Palestinian. And so that is really a problem because it's the same people. But for the most part, if you live on one side of the border, you are considered yourself as Arab. If you live on the other side of this green line, it's not even a border, but in the former West Bank, whatever, then you are called Palestinian. But those who support that struggle and that fight, even in Israel proper, there has been a tendency where they also want to be called Palestinian. But that is, I think that is coming in a different direction now, where I don't see that identity growing among the Israeli Arabs. There was for a while, but I'm sure that Tomer can have a better understanding of this than what I do. But I think that I have not seen that identification to be a Palestinian to really continue to grow among the Israeli Arabs. And I want to say this because the people from the beginning are Arabs. That's who they are. So in Arab nations, in the other parts of the Middle East, the other Arab nations around, they have quite a negative view, actually, of the people who call themselves Palestinians. It's for political reasons, they have officially sided with them in the struggle or tended to side with them in the struggle against Israel. But it's like for people in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, being Palestinian is looked upon, I think, in a kind of looking down on that identity. They know that it's a cheap trick to get sympathy, to rename themselves from originally having been proud Arabs to all of a sudden be identified with this group called Palestinian.
Yeah, that's very important point. That's true. That's true. It's amazing to change from one very ancient and historical identity to a new one. Is really
it's
something
not,
that's very
it's not only a good thing for them. Because
thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's really interesting.
Habtu, I see you raised your hand.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really very informing and very educating. I know I'm friend to Mark. Actually, I'm introduced by Marcos to this group, and he always tried to educate me on this issue. And as a result, I have been arguing against those who are standing against Israel on social media. So it was a good thing. It was another tool, another energy to argue. This is good. I was wondering about knowing this. I could even know, listening to you, I could even read in 5-10 minutes the facts about Palestine. It's not difficult these days, thanks to technology era. Why would, I mean, I'm referring to even the Oslo Accord. Why would the UN push for a two-state solution, and some Israels, including leaders, former leaders, also agree for this two-state solution? Is it because of there's no other option, or based on history, or what would you say is the ideal solution for Israel, the Jewish state now, and the people currently live there, regardless of their name, to coexist peacefully?
Yeah.
What's your ideal solution?
Well, the conflict is, has its main root, as far as I see it, in the religion of Islam, that cannot accept Jewish sovereignty over a land that has once been under Muslim authority. So it contradicts everything that Islam stands for, generally. So that is the root of the conflict. And of course, then this Muslim or Islamic jihad ideology joined forces with communist, socialist ideas. And that's how this two-state solution was able to be created, because of people in the West beginning to side with the communist agenda to remove the Jewish people from their ancient homeland. Because ultimately, the Jewish people's return to their ancient homeland is such a powerful testimony to the truth of the Word of God and the existence of a sovereign God who has, stated these thousands of years ago. The state of Israel is a miracle that testifies to the truth about the only true God. And so communism fights against, it's an atheistic ideology that rejects God. And it has joined forces with the religion of Islam that claims to be, the ultimate religion that has replaced all religions before them, both Judaism and Christianity. So they have found common ground. And unfortunately, because of this socialist influence, part of the reason, at least, why Israel was able to go along with this idea to create the Palestinian state and a two-state solution was because originally the state of Israel was a very socialist project. So you have some influence from that found common ground with atheistic communist ideas. So that is one, but also the pressure from the world so strong against the state of Israel made it that compromise a reality, because the state of Israel didn't see how it would be possible for them to rule over such a large population that is not Jewish. And that also contributed to why they went along with this sad idea that is today more or less lost its support. in Israel. Basically, no one in Israel anymore. I would say 90% of the Jewish people in Israel do not believe in a two-state solution anymore. They see that is not the way forward. So, because it is something that goes against what God Almighty have declared for his land that he has given to the Jewish people. So today we as Christians, I don't know if all of you in the audience today here are Christian, or there might be others also, but as Christians who believe in the God of Israel, it is our responsibility to stand up for the truth of the Word of God, for the Bible. That is so important to stand for that truth against forces of darkness and lies and evil. Satan is called the father of lies, and he is also called a murderer from the beginning. So the agenda to oppose the state of Israel includes both lies and it includes war and murder and terror, because that's the origin of the opposition to what God has said in his word concerning this land. So Christians have a responsibility that's so important in this hour to stand up for the truth and to support Israel and to be a bulwark of protection for the Jewish people, to fight for the right of the Jewish people to their own land.
Thank you so much, Lars. That was very inspiring, especially the last part of that answer. I think the people of Israel and the state of Israel, we are so grateful for the. Sorry, there's some problem here. Just everyone, if you're not talking, sorry, just mute. Okay. So we're so grateful for the incredible support these days that we get from the Christian communities in around the world, and
Can I add?
which is kind of unique in his some periods of. Huh? Sorry.
Yeah, if I can add something there, Tomer, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I am reminded of this. This is very important because in the last 2 years, I could say, or maybe specifically in the last year, there has been a revival or resurgence of ancient hostility in Christian circles against Israel and the Jewish people. And that's why we have to take this fight for the Christian community to stand on the Bible, to stand on the Word of God, to fight against this ancient replacement theology, hatred of the Jewish people that unfortunately is beginning to be revived in these days. This is such a tremendously crucial battle that we are involved in now. And the reason it's getting traction is because many Christians have stopped reading the Bible. They just listen to shallow preaching, but they don't study the Bible for themselves. So I maybe I can make a advertisement here for a Bible reading plan that I have developed called Daily Bread, where you read through the entire Bible in 1 year in harmony with the Torah cycle. And I am pushing this for Christians because we need to read the Bible more today than ever before in history, because this is a very real battle. I'm sorry I took so much time away from you there, Tomer.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you so much. That was an important point. I just want to finish my small point, which is also connected to that, because as you know, uh, uh, the people of Israel, the Jewish people are, our heritage is the Bible, at least our history, our because you mentioned Zionist movement, so I wanted to just give. Maybe I will turn off my video so it will be easier to hear me. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear.
Maybe now it will be better. Okay. So in the Jewish tradition, of course, in the diaspora, the Jewish people of and to exile for many generations, and it turned into somewhat of a in the diaspora that they would not return to their land until the Messiah would come, according to our tradition. And what made it actually the Zionist movement unique was that it was a kind of a blend. It was some religious, some secular, some different types of ideology, but in the end, they had all this drive to bring to life this ancient desire to return to our homeland. So even from a religious perspective, it can be seen as serving on the purpose of, in the end of the return to Zion. But for example, you mentioned that some of the early leaders of Israel came more from we call it the labor Zionist or the socialist Zionist movement. So David Ben-Gurion, our first prime minister, our founding father, he was a very secular person. He came from the socialist movement, and yet when he was asked what is your right to this land, he would show everyone a Bible, and this shows that the biblical identity of the people of Israel, of the Jewish people, is a part of us. It doesn't necessarily matter in our within us if we are more, let's say, observant or less observant, but in the end, our core identity is linked, as you were saying very clearly. So that's, I thought, one thing that's interesting. And another thing is, in the end, the two-state solution and these different attempts to solve the conflict in some different ways. In the end, we today, I think, as you mentioned quite clearly also and correctly, the majority of Israelis, they look back into history and they see that even before the beginning of the State of Israel, even before our reconstitution as the State of Israel in 1948, in 1936 there was a plan, the Peel Commission plan, which offered to divide the land, and the Jewish leadership, the Zionist leadership, said yes. The other side, at the time they called themselves the Arab leadership, they said no. In 1947-48, the UN proposed the partition plan. The Jewish people, of course, wanted all of the land, but we agreed to compromise, and the Zionist leadership agreed to get only part of it, and unfortunately the end, because then other than today, but then in the 90s, of course, the attempts at creating different peace plans, and in the early 2000s to come to the table, and unfortunately the other, our supposed negotiating partners, were not willing to compromise. So when you have this kind of a situation, and then we had a leader 20 years ago, Ariel Sharon, who decided unilaterally to leave territory and left the Gaza Strip. And then in 2023, on October 7th, we got what we got as a response. So I think this, just based on the experience of most Israelis, and I would say this is in the political system, and this is there is a minority, a small minority that's still, and I think most Israelis also, if you would give them a utopian situation where we could be promised that we sign a piece of paper, we give up land, and our neighbors will be peaceful and they will never attack us between our countries and live at peace. Everyone wants to live in peace, but based on their experience, most Israelis today, I would say, do not. In some ways, it corresponds to be in some to be divided like this. But this is past my pay grade as a diplomat. So it's a very interesting. Reality has made Israel into less trusting of this idea of a two-state solution today. Like, you look at the government, of course, but also the opposition. No one is promoting this idea at the moment, and we have to be realistic, because even aside from the biblical part and the faith and everything and the destiny, or however we want to call it, we have our security, and this is, in the end, the most important thing for the state of Israel and the people of Israel, is to continue living and surviving. So yeah, that was a little bit to add on to what you were speaking of in the last question.
Very good.
Okay. Does anyone else have? I don't know, by the way, how much time Lars has. I mean, maybe we have room for like one or two more questions, if possible.
We can give it 10 more minutes at most.
Okay, great. Does anyone have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I see
Yes.
our friend here.
Oh,
Alema.
yes.
Okay. Is that for me? Shall I continue?
Go ahead.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. I wonder if you can comment on Abraham Accord and the diplomatic relationship between Israel, the state of Israel, and some other Arab countries. Now, my question is, based on these facts, as I follow from the social media, Israel does have very good relationship with some Arab countries, and there is also another forum called Abraham Accord. Now, do you use those forums for discussion like what we are doing now between the scholars of the Israeli scholars and scholars from the Arab countries? Do you make some discussions, or what you call, are there discussion forums like what we are doing now? Because
Well,
at the end of the day, isolation theory doesn't work to my understanding. I mean, as far as there are diplomatic relationships between Israel government and some of the Arab nations, it will be wise to have a discussion forum so that you can learn from one another, and at least it can serve to go deep into the broad mass. So are there some forums like this?
Well, I am not involved in those kind of discussions because I'm speaking as a Bible teacher primarily.
Okay.
And I see that it is moving in a positive direction today in the relationships between Israel and other Arab nations. And I think that that is going to continue, and that is very good. So, and of course, from my biblical perspective, I can see there's also support for that. What we have as a greater, actually, there is more or less understanding for Israel in Europe, for instance, than I think that there is in several Arab states today. So we that's an interesting development, but this is not really my field. So I, I
All
will.
right. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all right.
Maybe I will just mention that of course there are different forums that where Israeli scholars and I mean, of course, government, also non-government level people are interacting with Gulf countries and other, like in North Africa, Morocco, and other, let's say, um, moderate people from the Arab world and from the Muslim world. I will. We have, of course, Israel has, and Mr. Lars mentioned it, has a large Arab minority, and many of them are are good citizens and are part of the society, and I mean they have completely equal rights in a democratic society. So they're definitely, from the Israeli state perspective, we want as much as possible to improve our and continue building our relations, our positive relations with the Arab world, because we are neighbors in the end, and we have to live amongst each other, live as neighbors. And in many ways, we have common interests, especially with the countries that understand that some of the challenges that Israel faces are the same challenges that they face and that they will face in the future. So yes, there are forums like that, and there's more that are being built all the time. After the Abraham Accords, there's in the UAE there was like the Abrahamic initiatives, like a few different initiatives that were founded by NGOs that bring together people of different backgrounds. There's delegations coming to Israel from Arab countries, and this is something we need to continue investing in and building from our perspective.
Toda rabba. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just a short comment about that. As far as I see, the greatest threat to the state of Israel today is not coming from the Arab world, but from Shia Islam in Iran, which is not Arabic, and Turkey, which is neither Arabic. So, yeah, I think that Jews and Arabs have common roots that can be develop into something positive.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
May I ask, sir?
Marcos, you have something. You have to turn on your microphone.
I would like to be succinct and as quick as I can, but I recall the quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer when he said, "Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. To speak is not to speak to." And when the thing is, when we know something that's wrong, when we know the truth about Israel and be quiet about it, that's wrong. And we have to, I would encourage everyone here, like we really have to be active in battling the lies, because this battle is a battle over truth. And Lars, if you have any further advice of how we could be more vocal, how we could be a blessing to, and how we could support and help the Jewish people during this time when the world is turning against them, I mean, from the left, from the right, even in Christian circles.
Yeah,
it's horrible what's going on in theological levels. So,
my greatest advice is that we must dig deeper roots in the Bible. And because really it has come down to a theological war to a large extent. I mean, or I should say, the battle against Israel has today a theological aspect to it that it didn't have just a few years ago. And it's very, very important, like I said before, in the Christian community that we speak out against this resurgence of replacement theology and animosity towards anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, because today's main form of anti-Semitism is anti-Zionism. Israel is becoming the cause of hatred against the Jewish people today, in a way that, it's taken the place of their religion. It's taken the place that it used to be. It's taken the place of the race as it used to be during the Holocaust. Today, it is the state of Israel that is becoming the focal point for hatred against the Jewish people. And here we must fight the battle within the church, in the Christian community, very, very strongly, what the Bible says. So I feel this is so very, very important. We must not lose that battle in the Christian community.
thank you, Lars.
Thank you. If you have a room for one more question, I think Samuel Tesfaye has been raising his hand for a few minutes. I think he'll be our last question, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So Samuel, we can't hear you. Samuel? Okay. Maybe if you can type your question quickly.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. It's my first time to be here in this group, and I'm very happy to join you guys. Actually, my friend Mengistu Dinote invited me to this special group, and as soon as he sent me the link of tonight's discussion, I just tried to Google about today's speaker, and then I just watched the sermon he gave about the truths of the Palestine in the church in the United States, and I really love that one. And it's really an eye-opening sermon. Really, personally, I do love the state of Israel very much, but I need to know everything in detail. So, what the lecture you gave us right now, again, the sermon that I have attended, earlier gives me a really increased the knowledge I have regarding to Israel. Thank you so much. For the next time, I will stay with you guys to just say thank you. Yeah.
Very good. I'm going to give you the link here to maybe the message that you talk about there. I don't know why this is. Let me see here if I can give it to you. Thank you so much for inviting. Sorry. Here, I put it in the chat because I can recommend if you have an opportunity to see that. Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Can I ask one question? I don't know where I can.
Hello? Who is this?
This is Tamru.
Okay. I don't know. If Lars has a couple more minutes, maybe.
Sure.
Maybe this is the last one then.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right, sir.
All
Thanks
right.
so much. I really appreciate it. It was insightful. I have a question, a couple of questions. Well, number one, do you believe Israel's current conflicts are primarily about territory, national security, or some religious or broader ideological war or struggle, and why? Because you study the prophecies, you study the Bible, and I love what you said. Study the Bible; they're the truths. We don't read it. That's why just blindly hating and blindly supporting our own enemies. So that's a question I have, because it looks like Israel is at the front line on a broader struggle that eventually will affect um, many of us. Probably our nation is somehow struggling with this religious ideological fight. So what do you see from biblical, historical, or geopolitical perspective? Israel struggle, current struggle, because most people, they think it's somebody's problem,
Yeah.
but it may not be our Israeli only problem. And then in the church circle, I think me and Mark usually had conversation, and we see some theological people come up with some argument. They quote some verses, and they say, the old Israel nation and are not the same as modern Israel. So I'm not supporting the Israeli government, but from a biblical perspective, I have obligation to support Israel, regardless. So, how do we defend those people? And some Christian distinguish between all the ancient Israel is different than the current Israel. It's a Zionist, whatever. This narratives.
Yes.
So,
Well,
it's a bit compacted question. Sorry, sir.
okay. I will try to answer some of it, at least, that you're bringing up here. This is a battle for the truth, to first of all. And this is a new form of lie that has come up, that today's Israel is not the same as biblical Israel. I mean, the people are the same people, and it's very important to see that today's state of Israel is a continuation of Jewish history for 4,000 years. So we must not give in to these people who are saying that, today's Israel is not connected to biblical Israel. That is a lie, and needs to be addressed in different ways to expose that lie. The battle that Israel is faced with is a battle for survival against nations that want to destroy them. And the outcome of that conflict is going to impact the entire world. In fact, speaking as a Christian from a biblical perspective, the future of humanity is hinging upon the survival of Israel, if I can put it that way bluntly. There is no future for the world without Israel. Okay, there's so much more I could say about that, but I guess I will. The entire biblical hope that we are part of is connected to the restoration of the Jewish people back to their homeland. It's the precursor of the era of the messianic future of the world. And that's what we as Christians believe in. And so we have no hope aside from a restoration of Israel. It's we live or die with it. So yeah, I think we're running out of time. I could say a lot more about that, but that's.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you so much again for your time this evening, for your fascinating insights, for the information and the facts that you shared with all of us. I think this is it's a extremely important topic that stands at the root of many of the things that we are unfortunately dealing with these days. And having someone like you be with this special group is very it means a lot. So thank you very much. Thank you to all who participated, and we will send also a link to the recording when it's finalized.
Thank you, everybody, for having. God bless you. Shalom.
Man, thank you very much. God
Have a
bless
good
you,
night,
Lars.
everyone.
Thank you.
Tomer, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
God bless
Mr.
you.
God
Tomer.
bless
Thank
everyone.
you very much.
Thank you.
Let's
Okay, okay. Bless, bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.